Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on transforming Irish rail stations for growing communities. The presentation will explore the recent and upcoming upgrades at several pivotal Irish rail stations, including Woodbrook, Cork Kent, Galway Kent, and Wicklow. The presentation will be given today by Damien Lambert, who's a rail director for Ireland with ACOM, Alex Bradley, who's a project director with ACOM, Aileen Prendergast, who's an associate director of development infrastructure with ACOM, David Vaughan, program manager for Erin Road, and Robin Winkle, who's an assistant manager with Irish Rail. Following the presentation, there'll be a short Q&A session at the end. So if you do have any questions, you can put them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And I'll hand you over now to Damien to start today's presentation.
That's great. Thanks, Alan. So as Alan said, my name is Damien Lambert. I'm a rail director for Ireland for ACOM. And I'd say just to reiterate Alan's comments, welcome you all to this presentation today, which is titled Transforming Irish Rail Stations for Growing Communities. So we in ACOM have been supporting Irish Rail across a number of projects in recent years, from the Cork Area Commuter Rail through to the Dart Plus business case, the rail freight development programs, and a number of their building upgrade programs. And I think most significantly, we have supported on a number of station developments. So the two projects that we would like to present today are, one, the redevelopment of the existing station at Kent Station. So let's say this has been selected because it's an important part of the Cork Area Commuter Rail project and the wider Cork metropolitan area transport strategy, which removes a number of operational constraints at the depot and supports the ambitions for service expansion across the Cork commuter network. And then the second uh, presentation that we will be discussing is the Woodbrook Station in Dublin. So again, this is an important project in that it has supported transport orientated development in the vicinity of the station, and as I say, it's a kind of a key element of increasing the capacity and supporting the growth and demand across the Dart network and as part of the Dart Plus project. So I say both these projects are where ACOM have provided a combination of design and project delivery supports. And it's also just to point out, for both projects, as say the lead architect was Pascal Watson, and the main contractor was John Craddock. So I say both stations are now complete and operational, and as I say, both projects are crucial in improving and facilitating improved access to the railway, enhancing interoperability, and ultimately ensuring that the facilities and infrastructure are accessible and able to cater for the growth in rail services it's projected into the future. So for today's presentation, it is a collaborative presentation, and there's going to be, as Alan had said, there'll be two presenters from ACOM and two presenters from Irish Rail. And in terms of timings, we have, I think, an hour for this overall presentation, but we were going to allow approximately 20 minutes for each of the projects, and then allow a 20-minute period at the end of the call for any comments or questions that people may have. And I say, is appreciate if you could either call them out on the call later on, or put them into the chat, and we can respond accordingly. So with that said, I'll hand over to the first speaker, which I think is Robin, to kick off the presentation on Kent Station.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, if you just pop onto the next slide there. To start with, just to put the through platform at Kent Station in context, I just want to run over the wider Cork Area Commuter Rail programme, and just demonstrate really how this programme led to the need for a new platform at Kent Station in Cork. So the overall aim of the CACR programme is to provide a high-frequency suburban commuter rail service through Cork, linking the population centres of Cove and Middleton in the east of Cork, directly with Mallow in the north of Cork, with services running every 10 minutes in both directions, much like the Dart service in Dublin. The CACR scheme is developed as per direction from the Cork Metropolitan Area Transport Strategy, CMATS 2040. And it's essentially divided into 7 overall sub-projects or packages of work. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Yep. So the 7 projects are listed here. The first of these, which is completed, is the through platform at Kent Station. That's obviously the subject of this part of the presentation. The next 2, which are currently in the construction phase, are the re-signalling of the Cork area. So all suburban lines out of Cork, as well as the intercity line to Mallow, will be re-signalled. This will allow for a shorter headway between trains. That's the time and the distance between one train and the next in the same direction. That's critical, obviously, in order to facilitate a high frequency service on all these routes. Next is the twin tracking of the railway line to Middleton. So currently Glanthorne to Middleton operates as a single tracked route largely, and this obviously puts a capacity constraint there. So in order to provide the high frequency commuter service, twin tracking of that route is required. The first 3 of the projects you'll see they're grouped together there for 2 reasons. One is they're all funded by the EU Recovery and Resilience Fund. The other is that we see these within Irish Rail as the capacity projects of the CACR scheme. In that without these projects, we won't have the capacity for the Cork area. With them, we obviously can take advantage of this improved capacity and provide a more frequent service. The next 4 projects underneath are the ones that'll harness this new capacity that we're developing. Just to run through them, they are 8 new stations along the line. We'll look at them in a bit more detail on the next slide. A new depot to service an electric fleet of trains, electrification of the Cork area to 25 kilovolts, and of course the fleet itself, a new electric fleet of 21 train sets to replace the diesel rolling stock operating on the routes. So if you can go to the next slide. So here we can see a map of the proposed CACR scheme. Proposed stations are shown in orange. 3 of those are to the north of Cork, between Mallow and Cork, and the remaining 5 are along the existing East Cork lines. The new stations are all strategically located, and they have a range of uses, such as park and rides, for example, at Blarney and Dunkettle, areas where housing developments are proposed, such as Manard and Waterrock, and areas where there's large commercial or employment uses like Carrigtwohill West. You can see there as well there's a new depot proposed between Middleton and Carrigtwohill, just to the west of the proposed Waterrock station. Now, at the centre of all this, of course, is Cork Kent Station, which needs to accommodate all of these high-frequency through services. Before the construction of the new through platform, the layout of the station wasn't capable of handling a high-frequency through service on top of existing traffic. So next slide, please. Just to take a closer look at Kent Station, this is an aerial photograph of the station before our development works here. This was the track layout, more or less, for the last 130 or so years. You can see there are tracks are highlighted in green, platforms in pink there. You can see there are 3 terminating platforms at the east of the station. They service Middleton and Cove. Then there are 2 curved platforms in the station. They typically service intercity trains to Dublin and Tralee, as well as local services to Mallow. The issue arises really because platform 4 is typically in use for intercity services, and it's occupied around 75% of the time by a train to allow for disembarking, cleaning, boarding of the hourly clock face service to Dublin. So that means that platform 5 was the only through platform available for through services at the station. And of course, that isn't enough to provide for a high frequency service in both directions, which is naturally going to need additional capacity. So that's why we needed an extra through platform at the station. If you pop to the next slide. So Alex will go into a bit more detail on the platform itself, but just to highlight a few of the key considerations that the new platform that had to be taken into account for the new platform. Of course, there were many. These are some of the important ones. Curvature of the platform. So the existing curved platforms at Kent Station, those who are familiar with it will be aware, they have a very small radius. It's approximately 180 meters. Modern standards require us to build platforms up straight if we can, or with a minimum radius of 350 meters to allow for improved safety. So any new structure that we were going to develop would have to be compliant with modern standards for the railway. The length of the platform. So in consultation with our colleagues in operations, it was determined that for operational resilience, the new platform should be able to cater for a full intercity train to use the platform. So we were looking at about a 250-meter long platform. Access, of course, we needed appropriate pedestrian circulation routes through the station. Anything we built had to be compliant with effectively part-time requirements, and needed to be within a short walk of the station. So the development of the design in light of all this led to a preferred option, which was progressed through planning and tender design. Alex is going to go into that in more detail shortly. If you just pop to the next slide, something I want to touch on really is the scale and the complexity of the enabling works that were required for this to get the job to site, really. So the image here, you can see the tracks numbered 1 to 6 from right to left. This is looking at Kent Station from the east. Everything highlighted on this image was something we had to either demolish or relocate in order to get to the point where we could start constructing the new platform structure. This all had to happen, of course, while keeping the railway operational. So in red, you can see there was a lot of lighting in the yard that had to be taken out of the way and replaced. A lot of signaling equipment highlighted in green there, that all had to be relocated, while of course keeping the signaling system live and operational. Legacy infrastructure, which was in our way, such as the old signal cabin and train wash, had to be demolished. There was a walkway for staff from linking the station with the depot that had to be taken out of commission because our platform would be in the way and would have to be compensated for with an alternative walkway. We also had to demolish the end of the existing platform 5 to allow the new structure to be built, and at the same time keeping the platform operational. Then tracks 4, 5, and 6 that you can see there all had to be relocated in what was a huge reconfiguration of the track layout in the Kent Station and Yard area, the largest for some time. And of course, to manage all this, the commissioning of a new signalling scheme was necessary to allow for train movements through this revised track layout. Important to note, I suppose, that all these enabling works, as well as the platform construction itself, were carried out with minimal disruption to operational services. So the tracks at the bottom of the photo here that you can see, apologies, during an off-peak hour, they handle 8 trains every hour plus shunting movements. So there's a lot of rail traffic there to contend with. Next slide, please. So we did a lot of the track works by night. The track configuration had to be done before the platform itself could be before the construction could start. The revised track layout allowed for a much more efficient operational regime at the station and more efficient shunting movements. Track works were all carried out by night on the railway. As those who are familiar with Kent Station will know, the area is flanked by a large residential area to the north. So we obviously had to be considerate of our neighbours in all these works. So the track works happened by night. We closed the station for one weekend. And apart from that, the day-to-day operations all continued as normal. And we were able to construct a lot of this by day as well. Just pop to the last slide, please. So before I hand over to Alex from AECOM, I just wanted to show this photo to demonstrate and give people an idea of how constrained our site was. So once the enabling works were completed, this sort of sliver of a site is what was left to us. The main contractor, John Craddock Limited, started platform construction itself then. As you can see, the site was sandwiched between the operational railway, so there are tracks 4 and 5 to the left of the construction site there, and a working train depot to the right on the low side of a retaining wall. Where the concrete truck is in that photo is now track 6, which is operational. So to construct this, we had to cross all these depot sidings several times a day with all our plant machinery materials, which presented a huge logistical challenge to the project team. I suppose careful coordination between all the stakeholders, the site team with John Craddock, the AECOM resident engineers, all put in a huge effort to get this project completed. As you'll see in Alex's presentation, the end result of it was testament to kind of all the work that everyone put into it. That's all from me. Thanks very much. I'll hand over to Alex now.
Thanks, Robin. Much appreciated. And hi, everybody. Thanks very much for listening to the presentation today. So I wanted to start with a sort of design drawing of the project and the main parts of the project, just so you can kind of get a feel for how much is going on with the project and the track rearrangement that needed to be undertaken, and the sort of technical aspects of the constraints of the site. So just starting in the sort of bottom left-hand corner, you can see that there's a very steep gradient at the tie-in with the existing track. Now, obviously, with track gradients, there are standards that need to be adhered to. So getting this aspect of the design to work with the constraints of the site was something that we really had to spend a lot of time on at the start of the project, at the early stages of design. Similarly, in the top right-hand corner, where we just about managed to get a standard turnout to work in that very constrained area. Robin touched on the platform length that was required, which meant that in that area where we needed to build, fit in a ramp for access to the track, as well as new signaling infrastructure, it was just a very constrained area. And it was very important to build that level of design maturity up to as high as possible at an early stage, because there just wasn't space at a later date for if more requirements came in or if issues were found on site, things like that. Then another sort of detail that you can see in this drawing is the stepped detail between the platforms. So at the west end, where track 5 and 6 are there, we had to put a step detail in because of the level difference between those tracks. That step runs for about 40 meters along the center line of the platform, and we have a guardrail in between for safety. So that's that slide. Oh, apologies. Again, just to show the constraints looking the other way of the site, Robin mentioned the curvature, the depot, and also that this is a live operational environment, and keeping the track and the railway station operational throughout was extremely, just absolutely critical. Also, in terms of ground conditions, Robin mentioned that this is a 130-year-old station. And so you can see the sort of color of the track there. So when ground investigation was done as part of phase 3, there were soft spots found within the track. And that led to a design for the structures of the platform of that required mini piling. Okay, so this is the picture of the project as it stands and completed today. So at the top of the page, the subway access to the new platform within the existing station that I'll come on to in a bit more detail in a second. So that's kind of, you can't see it in this picture, but it's within the station there. The driver and staff access that we installed as part of improvement for operations within the station. There's a retaining wall, and you can see the grey power cap there. That's a 114-meter long new retaining wall that tied into the existing, again, taking account of the level difference between track 6 and the depot. You can see the 2 new sections of canopy, the 80-meter length each. And you can see the newly laid track. And the way you can tell that is because it's grey, nice and clean grey ballast there. So I mentioned about the subway access. So on the left-hand side was the existing looking east. And on the right-hand side is the as-built subway looking west. So this is a really good example of reuse of an existing asset. That ramped access that you can see on the left already existed, but it was closed off. You couldn't actually get through onto the platform because you can see the RSJs and the infill concrete that form the surfacing for the platform at platform 5. So we provided new steps up to the platform so that there was a better access up to the extended platform 5 and new platform 6. For persons with reduced mobility, there is a ramp going west. So from the bottom of those stairs there, going the other way, there's a ramped access which leads to the existing platform 5, and there are fully accessible lifts throughout the station. Another nice little detail on the design there, you can see the handrails which have the downlighters in them. All of that was coordinated and designed by AECOM's MEP team and coordinated with Irish Rail's in-house MEP team as well. A lot of really good coordination going on between the teams throughout the project there. So this is the finished platform in all its glory. You can see the standardized signage there, customer information sign that links in with Irish Rail's telecommunications system, and you can see the finished canopy. So just to mention that the original early phase design for the canopy was a much more functional design with exposed surfaces and no sort of soffit there. So you can't see the light fittings, you can't see the cables there at the moment. As I said, the early stage design was much more functional, but through collaboration and early engagement with the planning authority, we actually upgraded the design to a much more aesthetically pleasing design, and one which is respectful to this nationally significant railway station. And that's what it looks like in terms of a cross section. This is more of a structural cross section. So you could see the maintenance ladder on the previous photo. You can see that there on the drawing. There's one of those on each of the sections to allow, like I say, maintenance for people to get up and do any painting or any fixing of bits on top that needed. In terms of safety and design, we did design a clip-on feature there so that a harness is worn when going on top, and you clip on and you can't actually fall off the edge. So that was a good feature. You can see the concealed services. The services run from the station through the platform through the platform structure and up the columns vertically. So they're fully concealed, but they are also maintainable. As is standard with Irish Rail and platform design, the platform falls from platform edge into the center. And you can also see in the center there the drainage, platform drainage, which had to be offset from the columns, because otherwise there would have been a clash with the columns and the foundations. Talking about the foundations there, foundations were buried and the base plates were buried on this project. That was to remove trip hazards, which is another really good safety and design feature. The structure of the platform was made up of precast Z units, really good for obviously prefabrication off-site, and then aiding with construction times on-site, which was very straight under the working hours available, having operational trains, like we said, and was crucial to meeting the program. Okay, so in terms of program, just a bit of an outline of what it kind of takes in terms of time to get a project like this done. And you can see there that the concept design was completed in November 2021, and then the preliminary design was started in February 2022. Within a constrained 8-month time period and through immediate mobilization of the project team in February 2022, we completed preliminary design, worked through the planning application process and got that completed. We completed the detailed design and tender documents and issued the main works contract ITT. That was really excellent work between the wider project team, AECOM and Irish Rail and all those involved to get that sort of timeline done. Robin mentioned the EU Recovery and Resilience Facility, which funded this project. And that was, to unlock that funding, was based on meeting deadlines within that overall program. And then through collaborative and open working with John Craddock, the official platform opening was April 2025 this year. And like Robin says, the platform is operational as we speak. AECOM did project management and resident engineering and employees rep throughout that project, throughout that process. And it's just a really good program to be on and project to be on. And then speaking of positives, there were a lot of achievements and outcomes on this project. I just wanted to raise a few. So safety, there were 0 reportable incidents on this project. That was achieved through an excellent safety in design and construction mantra throughout the project, through every phase. We've mentioned about keeping the operational continuity, minimal disruption and efficient sequencing, and the significant amount of works which were done during the day on this project, which was really good. And we've mentioned about the EU funding milestone. So thanks for everybody for listening, much appreciated. I'm going to hand over to David Vaughan now to talk about Woodbrook Station.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to give you a concise presentation on Woodbrook from the client perspective, and you over to Aileen to talk about more of the challenges and design issues on the project. The presentation will briefly discuss kind of the why a station at Woodbrook, what the project entailed, the delivery timeline, a summary of the enabling works or advanced works that we carried out ahead of main construction. And I would say one of the critical success factors of the project, perhaps one of the takeaways for the audience here, not unlike the success of the enabling works down in Kent that Robin and Alex talked about. So, just with respect to like why a new station at Woodbrook, we were approached by the National Transport Authority towards the end of 2017 with what effectively is the dot on the drawing to say we would like a station here. But this was supported by the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Development Plan in the 2016 to 2022, also a Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown local area plan for the Woodbrook Shandana area. They had great ambitions for this site to be developed for housing. That in turn was captured within the NTA's transport strategy. So there was numerous policy objectives supporting a new station here. It also aligns well with quite a few actually, but I'll give you a couple of the national strategic outcomes as noted in Project Ireland 2040. So for instance, compact growth. So concentrated land use development, like is shown at Woodbrook, it really requires high quality public transport. Similarly, sustainable mobility. A station like this, obviously enhances public transport, and it also activates other modes. Like we have good connectivity here with cycling and potential bus interchange in the future. So the station itself, obviously, it's located between Bray and Shankill. That's approximately 19 kilometers from Pearse Station. It's roughly 40-minute journey time by Dart. It's the 147th station on our network, and it is obviously located on quite a busy and constrained Dart line. Trains passing every 10 minutes at line speed is 95 kilometers an hour. The station itself is in a cutting. The brief was to provide two 174-meter long platforms. These cater for 8-car Dart trains, approximately 4 meters wide. Access would be provided by steel stairs, concrete stairs as well, running down to platform level. There's fully accessible ramps, and then a bridge, which is also wide enough to be shared as a public access route across the railway, as well as for the station access. We have the kind of usual platform furniture with shelters and bins and seating, lighting, CCTV, public address system, customer information systems, and standard station signage. There's going to be a new building necessary to provide house our telecoms equipment, but also electrical equipment and a cleaner store. We were providing a new track access road for future maintenance in this area, which is quite constrained for access. And then we were integrating with the adjacent development by Castlethorne to provide a efficient interchange for cyclists and for pedestrian access, as well as car drop-off and bus drop-off. The timeline. So the project started out with Irish Rail directly, and the original feasibility study and concept design, preliminary design stage was undertaken by the capital investments team in Irish Rail, and the concept was initially developed by our internal architects. And we then appointed AECOM to develop the design further and bring us through the planning stage. Planning was granted by Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown in August 21. We undertook 2 sets of enabling works, which I'll get into a little bit more on the next slide, over the course of 2022 and 2023, which would give our main contractor, I suppose, more of a blank canvas to work on. And that main contractor ended up being John Craddock Limited. The contract was awarded in October 23 and commenced shortly after in November 23. And then we completed the station in July substantially and opened it in August 25. The construction stage, design support and contract administration, like ER and resident engineer duties and so on, were carried out by O'Connor Sutton Cronin Consulting Engineers. Its inception, we had close collaboration with Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council. The adjacent developer, Castlethorne, obviously Woodbrook Golf Club is a close neighbour and a strategic stakeholder as well. And then we had excellent cooperation with our internal departments within Irish Rail, consistent support as well from the National Transport Authority and also the Commission for Railway Regulation, all supportive of the project and really helped us get it over the line. The overall budget was 23.9 million, and we have delivered it for under budget. So the enabling works, we carried out two, I would say, tranches of enabling works. One was the renewal of a bridge deck. This is OBR 134. This was a steel troughing deck, which was weight restricted, wasn't in use per se, but we identified it early as critical to our construction strategy for construction access, because the platform on the seaside or eastern side was effectively landlocked. So we designed and delivered internally a renewal of that bridge deck over a number of weekday and weekend nights. And that opened up construction access to the eastern side for us. Subsequently, we reprofiled the embankments. So the image to the right shows the embankments reprofiled. The image to the bottom of the slide here is the renewal of the deck with what was, say, removal of the steel deck and replacement with precast concrete. On the right, there's a lot going on in the image. At that time, we as well as reprofiling the embankments, we had to divert a 38 kV cable, which is effectively feeding the DART system. So as part of that, we, over a number of weekend shutdowns on the DART line, we created a new route and we protected the route with a concrete slab, and that slab later served as the foundation for the platform. We also moved all of our critical infrastructure, signaling and telecoms infrastructure, out of the way of main construction and protected it for main construction. So I would say we spent approximately 20% of the budget on those enabling works or advanced works, which is significant, but I think I'm sure it was critical to the later success of the main construction delivery. So just to give you a flavour of the before and after, this is an image from that bridge. So we're facing towards Bray, February 21, before we commenced any sort of enabling work, and an image taken from the same vantage point in July of this year, post-construction. This is our new footbridge, and obviously we've got new OHLE gantries, protective netting from the golf course, etc. And then another vantage point, just to give you it in more context, is this aerial shot showing the ongoing development by Castlethorne as part of the local area plan. Our station here is and the access road at Woodbrook Avenue, and with turning points and drop-off area. And this site, this continues to be ambitious plans to develop in and around this area. So I'm going to hand you over to Aileen. She will talk you through some of the points I've raised here in a bit more detail and some of the key design challenges that arose.
Thanks, David. So I'm going to talk through AECOM's role in the detailed design project and the challenges associated with the site, the proposed station, give an overview in a little bit more detail on the enabling works and how the station integrates with its surrounding area. So you can see from the images here what the vision for the station was at kind of concept planning stage design. So there was going to be two 174-metre long platforms adjacent to the existing line, and all of the normal station amenities like shelters, lighting, CCTV, drainage, along with the railway systems that would be required, like signalling, integration with the OHLE and other operational requirements. So a key element of the design of the station was the pedestrian overbridge, and that was required to provide interface with the station without impacting the station operation when the greenway is complete. The idea with this is that you'd have access to the greenway for pedestrians and cyclists out of hours for the station, and then also facilitate active travel links, provide bicycle parking and storage at the station as part of the completed station. So then the AECOM Bill & Watson brief is described here. So we were appointed to undertake the detailed design and preparation of tender documentation for the station. And I suppose a key point in the brief is that the station design was heavily influenced by the surrounding landscape. So the golf course, the views, the vantage points that are available there. And it was important to the client that the finished product didn't detract from those views that are there. So it was important that a transparent superstructure with lightweight balustrading was provided so that it's set into the landscape rather than taking away from it. Then you've got platform structures, the TER building, and provision of a permanent way access route on the western side to facilitate Irish Rail's maintenance activities following completion. So the bridge itself was to provide access to both the Greenway and the Castlethorne side of the station, while also providing access down onto the platforms. So in terms of engineering challenges, the site is quite constrained. You can see that its position here along the existing track is within the footprint of the Woodbrook Golf Club. You've got the Castlethorne development to the western side, and access was fairly limited to the site, but the upgrade of the bridge to the north did assist with unlocking the eastern side. The track level is about 3 meters below the surrounding lands, which did limit further access and also required widening of the existing cutting, regrading the slopes, and installation of a number of retaining structures within the footprint of the permanent way. In terms of existing infrastructure around the site of the proposed station, we've, as David mentioned, the overbridge 134 to the north, an existing gas main, there was existing drainage and the existing 38 kV services within the embankments. And then you've got the existing overhead line equipment and signalling, which is required for the dart line and the railway line to function on a daily basis. So all of the proposals had to integrate within those assets. In terms of working adjacent to a live railway, it was really important not to have any impact on the operational requirements and at least minimize the disruptive possessions required to actually install all of the elements of the new station. So structurally and architecturally, integrating the station into the surrounding landscape was a key challenge and really influenced the design that was developed in terms of material choices and finishes on concrete and so on. So the interface with the Castlethorne development on the western side and the golf course, they really benefited the project, and both were very engaged from the early stages of the project. So in terms of solutions to these engineering challenges, precast concrete was used widely throughout the proposed station for platforms, which would be typical, but also the remaining walls and the TER building elements. A cantilever retaining wall solution was adopted for the western side of the permanent way access road. And in keeping with the surrounding golf course, a golf ball dimple finish was incorporated in the precast retaining structures at platform level. In terms of unlocking the site itself for the proposed station, a number of services were diverted. So the 38 kV, the drainage and the gas were diverted through an advanced works contract. The bridge and access ramp balustrades, they incorporated transparent stainless steel meshing so that it didn't detract from the views available across the eastern side out to the coast and to the south, like you can see there in the photograph. The bridge was a 3-span Verndale truss bridge with galvanized steel. And the main section, main 19-meter span of this was prefabricated off-site to allow it to be lifted into position in a single possession rather than requiring multiple possessions. Similarly, the footbridge, ramps and stairs were prefabricated off-site to assist with fabrication times on site. So the greenway provision for the future is along the eastern side of the station here. So the intention would be that the bridge and the ramps could provide access to that for public access. And then in terms of the space limitations, again, that influenced the piling solution that was chosen for the OHD gantries. So micropiles were provided for the gantries that you can see there in the platforms. So there's just some images here of the finished station. So you can see the kind of golf ball dimple finish on the precast concrete there, and you can see some details of the bridge and what it looks like in terms of the of the balustrading provided. And that's a closer image again there of the finish on the precast, which really links in with the surrounding environment. So in terms of the enabling works, the existing 30 kV line on the western side of the station was diverted, and as part of the diversion of that, a solution was to lay the concrete foundation for the Z units to provide protection to the 38 kV. So you can see here on the photograph on the right, you can see the concrete slab when it was completed. So this formed the basis for the Z units to be put into position when John Craddock's were delivering the main contract. There was existing gas and drainage diverted. The embankment was reprofiled on both sides of the station to create more space on either side of the track. So you can see the difference between the slope on both images there. The existing BR24 and 25 signals were relocated. There was some ducting installed on the downside of the platform. And again, coordination with Castletorn and the Golf Club was critical to the success of both this package and the bridge work package. So in terms of the station completed, it's now operational since August 25 and is an important element of the Shangana and Woodbrook residential area to provide sustainable transport and provide links with the wider railway infrastructure in the area. In keeping with the sustainable transport theme, the access for the greenway and provision of bike parking and storage on the site were important. And in terms of long-term, the maintenance access road to the railway access point will really assist Irish Rail in terms of maintenance of the line in this area. And though the station itself will obviously tie in with the long-term growth of the area in residential terms.
Thank you again to all the speakers for a very good presentation.